All right, hello Algebra. It's Mr. Mock with your week 6 notes. So, we are going to be taking our love of quadratics and the parabola graph and start connecting it to factoring and what it means and all this other stuff. So, this week we are going to be solving quadratics by factoring. Okay, so what does the solution of a quadratic look like? That's really the main question. Okay, so when we're talking about the solution of a quadratic, the solution is where the parabola crosses the x-axis. Or in other words, you set the equation equal to 0, set y equal to 0, and solve. Okay? So when you look at this graph of this parabola, all right, we have a lot of information that we now know because we've been studying quadratics and parabolas for a little while, all right? The first thing that we can identify and say is we have a vertex. We can see what our vertex is. Our vertex is at -1, +1, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So our vertex is at 1, -9. We've got information there. And when we look at the pattern here, we go over 1, up 1, over 2, up 4, over 3, up 9. We know that this is just a very standard basic quadratic. We can write the vertex form of this quadratic as y equals, it'd be x minus 1 squared minus 9, and we actually have now the vertex form of this equation. Sweet, okay? But we can also see what the zeros are. In this case, what are the solutions to this quadratic? I just told you that's where the parabola crosses the x-axis. So we see that we have a solution at x equals -2. We have a solution at x equals 1, 2, 3, 4. X equals 4. So now we're going to try to identify how this relates back to this and the structure of the quadratic equation. Let's go ahead and multiply this out. Let's turn this into standard form. All right. So if I were to turn this into standard form, you'd have y equals, we would do x minus 1 times x minus 1 minus 9. You'd go ahead and multiply that out. That's going to be x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 9. And then check this out. You would get x squared minus 2x. You have a positive 1 and a negative 9. That's going to be -8. Okay. Now, this is the standard form. You're like, Mr. Mock, we know this. We've already covered all this stuff. Great. Which means if we know it as well as we know it, we should be able to figure out this vertex still by using that x equals -b over 2a, right? So let me go ahead and grab a different color here. So if I do the x equals -b over 2a, b is going to be -2 all over 2 times 1, which is basically 2 over 2, which equals 1. Check it out. Yay. And then if we plug that in, we would get 1 squared is 1, 1 minus 2, because -2 times 1 is -2. So 1 minus 2 is -1. -1 minus 8 is -9. Look, okay, so standard form works. Vertex works. We know we did this the same. But now we're going to link it up to this. Okay? And how we do that is I'm going to take, and if I look up here, remember, set y equal to 0. So let's take standard form and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to say 0 equals, and I have the x squared minus 2x minus 8. And now we're going to get to factored form. Oh, Mr. Mock, look, it's a quadratic. We factored these before. Yeah, and that's why I brought it up, right? So how do we factor this guy right here? We'll take a look. We take factors of -8 that add up to -2. And I'll give you a moment. You can pause it. Go ahead and try to factor this on your own. Go ahead and pause. Factors of -8 that add up to -2. Boom. Go ahead and do it. Okay, and now we're back. And here's what I got. Now, that's factored form. Take a look at our x-intercepts. -2 and a +4. Well, Mr. Mike, this is a -4, and that's a +2, but we're not done yet. We've got to solve for this, which means we're going to take 0 equals x minus 4 and 0 equals x plus 2. And when you solve that, when you do a balancing step, what do? You're going to add 4 to both sides. You get x equals 4. You subtract 2 on both sides, you get x equals -2. So when you factor the standard form of a quadratic, you get your x-intercepts. So that's how you get the solution, right? You factor the standard form to get the solution. But remember, you have to have it set equal to 0. All right, so like maybe pause, write down those notes. Let's reflect on that a little bit. Because we went through vertex form, connected it to standard form, proved the vertex, and then we factored it. And when we factored it, we got the x-intercepts. That's so cool. Now, transition to a couple more examples. Sliding the page up. If you need a break, if you want to take a pause, and then come back in a minute, that's cool. Hit pause, and then come back for the examples. All right, welcome back. So this first example is x squared plus 2x equals 8. Now, remember, you have to set these equal to 0, which means we have to subtract 8 on both sides before we do anything at all. All right, so we're solving the quadratic by factoring. And that solution is going to tell us what the x-intercepts are. All right, so now I subtracted the 8 over. Now I've got it set equal to 0. Now I'm going to factor. And I'm going to factor, I need factors of -8 that add up to a +2. And I'm now just realizing how very similar my example up here is to this example. Oops. All right. But we need factors of -8 that add up to 2. And, well, it's just the opposite here. It's going to be a +4 and a -2. So now once you've gotten to this is factored form. To get your solutions, you just take the first one, x minus 2, set it equal to 0, and x plus 4, set it equal to 0. Because you're going to have two answers. You add 2 to both sides. One of your answers is x equals 2, minus 4, you get x equals -4. This is where the parabola is going to cross the x-intercept. And when you're working with Pearson, it's going to give, you can write it this way. It might ask you to write it as x equals 2, -4. It might ask you to put it into an interval, which then you just do 2, -4, or -4, 2. Make sure you read the directions. If it wants interval, if it wants it with comma, if it wants it two separate, okay? So that's this one. Second problem, second example. Again, it's set equal to 12. I'm going to have to subtract 12 on both sides. So then you're going to get 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 equals 0. And, there's a couple ways to go about doing this one. The one that we had talked about was you take the 2 times the -12, which is -24, and I want factors of -24 that add to 5. So that would be 8 times -3, all right? So what you do there then is you take x squared, and you can do plus 8x minus 3x minus 12 equals 0, right? Because this goes back up to that. And then you factor this side. You can take out a 2x. That'd be x plus 4. Factor out a negative 3. You would get x plus 4. And now look, these are the same, so we can factor that out. And my purple marker is going on me. So this would then become 2x minus 3 times x plus 4 equals 0. And to solve it up and to finish up the problem, you would just set both of those equal to 0. So you'd have 2x minus 3 equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0. So over here, you know that x equals negative 4. You'd have to add 3 to both sides to get 2x plus 3. 2x equals 3, right? Or that x equals 3 over 2. Do not worry about turning that into a mixed number. Keep it as an improper fraction. So then these would be your two answers. Your solution set would be then this. Okay? All right, guys, so those two examples. I hope you're now seeing how this all ties together with the factoring and how it connects back to the x-intercepts, which is pretty cool in my book. All right. Talk to you guys later. Peace out.